You talk to your animals. Nearly all of us do. We ask the dog if it wants to go for a walk. We tell the cat we will be back soon. We chatter away to them all day long. And they look up at us, heads tilted, eyes bright, and they seem, somehow, to understand. But do they, really? When you speak to the creature at your feet, how much is actually getting through? Are they understanding your words the way another person would? Or are they simply reading the sound of your voice, the look on your face, and making a clever guess? It is one of the oldest questions we share with animals. And the real answer, it turns out, is far stranger and far more wonderful than most of us have ever imagined. So, stay with me to the end. Let us begin. For a very long time, the accepted wisdom was almost dismissive. Your dog, the experts said, does not understand your words at all. It only reads your tone. Speak sweetly, and it wags. Speak sharply, and it cowers. According to this old idea, you could say the most absurd things in the world in a warm and loving voice, and your dog would be every bit as delighted as if you had promised it a walk. The actual words, they insisted, were meaningless noise. Only the music behind them ever truly mattered. And there is a grain of truth in it. Tone does matter enormously to an animal, far more than it does to us. But as scientists began to look closer, with brain scanners and careful experiments, they discovered that this tidy little explanation was hiding something quite remarkable. Because it turns out that our animals are listening far more closely than we ever gave them credit for. They are not only hearing the melody of our voices, many of them, it seems, are also listening to the words themselves. Just how many words can an animal understand? The answers that science has uncovered are genuinely astonishing. Consider a border collie named Chaser, who became one of the most famous dogs in the entire world for a very good reason. Over years of patient work with her owner, Chaser learned the individual names of more than 1,000 different objects. Not categories, but names. She could be asked to fetch one specific toy by its own particular name from a pile of hundreds. And she would search through them and bring back exactly the right one. More than 1,000 separate words. Another clever dog understood the names of hundreds of items and could even work out which toy was the new one simply by realizing it was the single object whose name he had never heard before. And these are not lonely miracles. Researchers estimate that the average dog can learn to understand around 160 different words, signs, and phrases, and that many of the brightest understand a great deal more. Sit, stay, walk, dinner, ball, outside, no, bedtime, the name of every person in the family, and often the names of the other pets besides. Your dog may be carrying around a far larger vocabulary than you have ever realized. It has simply been waiting, quietly, for you to notice. But here is where it becomes truly fascinating. Because our animals are not only learning what our words mean, they are also, at the very same time, reading how we say them. In one groundbreaking study, scientists trained dogs to lie perfectly still inside a brain scanner so that they could watch what happened inside a dog's mind as it listened to a human voice. And what they found was extraordinary. The dogs were processing our speech in two separate places at once. In one part of the brain, they were working out the meaning of the actual words. In another, they were reading the tone, the warmth, the intention carried in the voice. And most beautiful of all, the deep reward center of the brain, the part that glows with happiness, lit up brightest only when the two things matched. Only when a word of genuine praise was spoken in a truly warm and loving voice. In other words, your dog knows the difference between simply hearing the word good and actually being told that it is a good dog and being meant. You cannot fool them with a kind tone alone. They are listening to both the words and the heart behind them, and they can tell at once when the two do not agree.
And words and tone are only the beginning of how they understand us, because our animals are reading us with their eyes just as much as with their ears. Think about how much we say without ever speaking a single word. A glance toward the door, a reach for the leash,
The particular way we move about when we are getting ready to leave the house. Our animals notice every bit of it. Dogs, in particular, are astonishingly gifted at reading human body language. Point at a distant object, and a dog will look where you are pointing and understand that you mean for it to go there. A simple thing to us, but something that even our closest relatives, the great apes, often struggle to grasp. Dogs read the expressions on our faces. They can tell a happy face from an angry one. They watch which way our eyes are looking. They notice the set of our shoulders, the tension in our hands, the 1,000 tiny signals we are giving off without even knowing it. To live with a dog or a cat is to be read, gently and constantly, by a creature that is studying us far more attentively than we ever study it. They may not have our words, but they have learned, over many thousands of years, to read the language of our bodies almost fluently. If this is fascinating you the way it is fascinating me, take a moment to tap that like button below. It truly helps these gentle explorations reach more people who love their animals just as much as you do. Now, at this point, some of you are surely thinking of your cat and slowly shaking your head. Because if cats understand us so very well, why on earth do they so often act as though they cannot hear us at all? Well, here is a discovery that may not surprise cat owners in the slightest. Researchers in Japan set out to test whether cats could actually recognize their own names. They played recordings of different words, ordinary words that sounded quite similar, and then mixed in among them each cat's real name. And the cats responded to their names. A flick of an ear, a turn of the head, a subtle little shift that showed unmistakably that they knew. Your cat, in other words, absolutely does know its own name. It knows perfectly well when you are calling it. It simply, in its own magnificent way, reserves the sacred right to pretend that it does not. And there is something almost wonderful in that. It means that when your cat does come when you call, it is not because it feels compelled to. It is because, in that particular moment, it has decided that you are worth getting up for. With a cat, being understood was never really the question. Being chosen to answer, that is the true compliment. A dog comes running the very instant it is called. A cat hears that same name, weighs it, and decides entirely for itself. Both of them understood you perfectly well. And understanding, of course, runs in both directions. For just as our animals have spent thousands of years learning to understand us, they have also, quietly, been learning to speak to us in return. Take the simple meow of a cat. It may surprise you to learn that adult cats almost never meow at one another at all. That particular sound, that insistent little cry, is something they developed almost entirely for us. Your cat has, in effect, crafted a special language aimed directly at the human ear, softening its voice, sharpening its demands, learning exactly which sound will send you reaching for the food bowl or rising to open the door. And dogs do the very same. The whole rich repertoire of a dog, the different barks, the whines, the sighs, the pleading and soulful looks, is aimed squarely at us, at getting through to the humans they live with. Over the long ages of our friendship, they did not simply learn to understand our language. They quietly built a language of their very own, one designed for a single purpose above all others: to reach us, to be understood by the ones that they love. But of everything our animals understand about us, there is one kind of understanding that runs deeper than any word ever could. They understand how we feel. You have surely felt it yourself. The dog who comes and rests its head upon your knee on the day your heart is quietly breaking, though you have not said a single word.
The cat who, against all of its usual aloofness, climbs gently into your lap on the one evening when you need it most. They read something in us in those moments that has nothing at all to do with vocabulary. The change in our scent when we are frightened. The heaviness in our movements when we are sad. The sound of our weeping, which so many animals find almost impossible to ignore. And they respond again and again in the same way, by drawing closer. This is a form of understanding that lives beneath all of our clever words, older and truer than language itself.
Your animal may not understand the reasons for your sorrow. It cannot grasp the news you received, or the argument you had, or the worry that keeps you awake through the night. But it understands, with perfect and shining clarity, the single most important thing of all, that the person it loves is hurting, and that it wants, more than anything in the world, simply to be near you. And that, when you truly think about it, is the most profound understanding of all. We spend so much of our lives longing to be truly understood, searching for someone who can look past our words and see what we are really feeling underneath them. And all the while, there is a creature in our own home who does exactly that, not through language, but through love. Not by grasping our reasons, but by feeling our pain as though it were their very own, and refusing to leave us alone with it. So, do animals understand what we say? After everything that we have seen, the answer is a resounding and astonishing yes. They understand our words, sometimes hundreds upon hundreds of them. They read the tone and the feeling wrapped around those words. They study our faces and our bodies. They know their own names. They speak back to us in a language built just for us. And above all, they understand our hearts. And yet, in the end, perhaps the very deepest truth is this. When your dog gazes up at you while you are speaking, it may not follow the meaning of every single word, but it understands something far greater than any sentence could ever hold. It understands that it is yours and that you are its own. It understands that your voice is the most important sound in all the world. It understands that it is safe and that it is home and that it is loved. So the next time you find yourself talking to the animal at your feet and you catch that soft, attentive look come over its gentle face, know that you are not talking to yourself at all. You are being heard more completely than you may ever realize by a creature for whom you are the entire meaning of the world. They may never understand every word we say, but they have always, somehow, understood us. If this has touched your heart today, then you already understand the quiet magic we have been speaking of. So tell us in the comments below, what is the one word or phrase your animal understands best? The one that brings it running every single time? A walk, perhaps, or dinner, or simply its own beloved name? We would truly love to hear it, and we read every single one. There is nothing more delightful than this community sharing the little ways our animals understand us. And if you would like more gentle journeys into the hidden minds of the animals we love, what they think, what they feel, and what they understand about us, then subscribe and stay close, because there is so much more waiting just ahead. Thank you for being here with us today. And tonight, say something kind to them and watch them listen. To them, your voice is the whole world.